Ladies, welcome to another episode of the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today and welcome Angela Duncan to the Revitalized Womanhood podcast. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And I am so excited to dig right into all of that beautiful knowledge that you hold for us, all about empowering our money.
Yeah. Gina, thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited for this conversation as well.
So tell my listeners a little bit about what you do and how you got into this line of work.
Yes. So, most of the things I think we do as adults kind of derive from our childhood, right? And so my mom was a single mom, Section 8 housing, welfare. And I just remember her always telling me like we couldn't do things, we couldn't have vacation or, couldn't live in a big house because we didn't have this thing called money. And as a kid, we don't know what that is, right? So I told myself, I'm going to figure out what money is and I'm going to go to school and I'm going to learn about this thing. And that's kind of how like my whole journey about learning about money, putting it into my own life, but now really helping other women because I remember what it feels like as a child, when my mom didn't have money. And if we can help educate women and not have other children go through that, then I feel like it makes the world a better place.
Do you know what's interesting about this? And I'm so glad there are women like you out there. I've had Lisa Chastain on as well. She is also big into this same topic. And for me, it's really interesting that my money mindset around the emotions around my money mindset and all that, it's interesting that actually a lot of people don't even think about that. They don't even think about the fact that there is trauma or beliefs that go along with money from when we're children. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is my dad was a banker my whole life growing up. Mm-hmm. My dad managed banks. He was financial representative for people, you know what I mean? And he did teach us, balance your checkbook, mm-hmm. but nothing more than that. And I found myself in a bad way, right? Having to pay back a lot of debt, which is so interesting to me looking at that now from a different perspective of having a husband who is a just serial entrepreneur and beating it into my kids what money actually means, what it means to do the things that you need to do to ensure you either have money or that your next generation has money, we leave them money, what they do with the money, all of these things that were not part of my childhood whatsoever. So this started back when you were a child. What was it really though when you got to this point of saying, I need to have a podcast about this? Because you have a podcast called Empower Her Money, right?
Yes.
And then you wrote a book. You went on even further to writing a book, Empower Your Money. That doesn't just come from, I know a lot of women who were raised by single moms and had the same kind of beliefs around money probably that you did, and they didn't go on to have a podcast or write a book about it. Like, what really fueled that passion in you?
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out, how do we teach, right? What are ways that we absorb information and how do I make it as easily accessible to people as possible? When you find something that you're passionate about, I believe that we have a responsibility to give back, to teach other people what we've learned. And when you're passionate about something and you just thrive in that, you might think that information comes very easily to you, but in fact, it doesn't. So it's my responsibility to teach other people. I believe that some people are audible learners. And, there's lots of studies done where people are listening to more podcasts now. Podcast hosts have more influence than like supermodels do, so finding where the trends are going and how do we give that information as much as possible so that it is out there for free. You can go to YouTube and get free information. You can go to Spotify and get a free account. But then I also thought, I'm a very visual learner. I like to buy a book. I grab a highlighter and a pen, and I am reading it and taking notes. And that's the way that I learn. So in order to reach more people, I want to teach in a manner in which they want to receive. So the book was coming, second to that, to give very similar information, to give women permission just to keep it super simple, give you a couple of key ideas that you can implement into your life right away. I don't want to make it complicated. I want to, help the women who perhaps are just starting their journey or they're sick and tired and they want to get out of debt. Maybe they went through a divorce. Like, let's just give you some action items that are very easy for you to do and then give more information when you're ready. So that's where the book came along. And it's funny, I hired a coach because, if you've never done a book before and you want to get to as many people as possible, hire a coach, because learning Amazon is a whole thing of itself, right? So my coach was giving me keywords so that people would search for the book, because what's the point of having a book out there if nobody can find you, right? So finding that like empower your money was a better word for people to find than empower her money. That way, yes, men can read it too. It's not information that's like exclusive to women, but still having that feminine pink and, allowing women to have their own space so that we can learn about money together.
So you talk a lot about empowered money. What does that mean to you? What does empowered money mean to you?
Empowered to me means I have made a decision. I'm going to take control of my money, meaning I'm going to learn more about it. How does it work? How do I feel about it? Because even though you could have stories from your childhood, those will continue to change throughout your life. So your stories can change, and what you tell yourself and how you handle money and understanding what's important to you. When you feel like you're in control of your money, then I feel like that's the empower piece. And so when you really spend the time to just know enough that makes sense to you. I'm not asking you to write a book. I'm not asking you to learn how to, trade stock options if that's not what you're interested in. I invest in real estate. There's hundreds of ways to do that. Just figure out what makes sense to you and learn more about that, and just take it one step at a time. That way you feel like you're in control, especially when you're coming from the childhood of not having money. And even if you came from a childhood, I've interviewed women that have had lots of money and they still have money, stories that keep them from creating more wealth. But just understanding where it comes from and that it's not your story anymore. And today you have that chance to rewrite it. And that's where the power comes from.
I love that you talk about it being in control, because that's basically empowerment, period, right? Empowerment over your life is feeling like you're in control of your life. That's a lot of the foundations that I work on it starts with women that come to me that feel like life is just happening at them, right? Which a lot of finances, that is how it happens. You get this monthly statement and all of a sudden you're going, okay, perfect example. I did. I had my monthly statement show up and it was like, I think my husband, he's like, I just paid it off. It was like $1,200 or something. And I'm like, what? No, because I've been specifically mindful about trimming the fat on that account. And I'm like, there's no way. And so I'm like, okay, I must have missed a subscription or something big that came out that I thought I had canceled. I need to go look into it. So I open up this statement. It was nothing big. Nothing big. It was like $20 here, $12 here, $40 here, $100. And that kind of stuff, if you do not have your money mindset right, if you're not empowered her over your money, you are not following that. You're not keeping track of that. And over 30 days, it's funny how our mind tells us, oh, $5 for a coffee is not a big deal. But over 30 days, it is a big deal. It's impactful. It's making an impact. Just like habits, if you're on this, like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds, I'm going to lose 10 pounds or whatever, just like waking up every day and going to the gym is going to have an impact, or waking up every day and drinking your protein shake or whatever, it's going to have an impact, right?
Yep.
And I fell victim to this, and I know better. But okay, so what's usually the first mindset shift that needs to happen? When you're working with these women, what do you notice is the first mindset shift?
Yeah, so I like to go through an activity and kind of give some scenarios to see what resonates with them, right? Do they feel they're worthy of money, and understanding if that is something that's blocking them? Do they feel that money is bad, and so maybe that might be blocking them? Or maybe they feel like they're going to run out of money because they saw someone run out of money. So just understanding what has happened in their life to figure out what those stories look like. And then how do we sit down and say, is that your truth today? Is this what you are living today? And if it is, then great, we have an understanding. But if it isn't, then let's tell ourselves what the correct story is today. And it's not something that happens overnight. I'll tell you, I'm in my 40s and I still struggle with money, even though I talk about it and I teach it. I still find myself hitting patterns that I used to. And then I have to stop for a minute and say, okay, this is an old story. This is not who I am today. This is not what I believe today, but it will continue to come up. And I think giving yourself grace and opportunity to say, I recognize this. It's okay. Now let's move in a different direction.
Yeah, that's like anything. It's practice. It's a daily practice doing this kind of work and being aware of, because habits are tricky. Habits are habits because they are habits. Like that sounds so stupid, but they are that way because we default to them. So it's the same with anything. So with money, of course, we default with them. And my husband and I, we used to be so tight, so tight because we had lost everything and we were building it back. So, I mean, we were super to the point of still, even though we had a large bank account, we were eating ramen noodles or being very cautious about not, even if we were going out to dinner, we don't order extra drinks. We don't let our kids get sodas. We don't, we're very, very aware. And he actually said to me, made this in this last 3 months, I was telling you about our trip that we've been on. And he says, we have been loosening up. I've been noticing a pattern that and both of us, he's not accusing me or, he's saying both of us, we've both become kind of complacent. And now we're working on some even bigger goals together. And so he's like, so if that's something we want to do, we got to get back to really being on it, just like a diet, just like going to the gym, just like any other routine. You have got to have discipline around it, right?
But that's so great that you guys are able to have that conversation. There's so many couples that aren't having that conversation. They're afraid to. One person, you could be man or the woman, and one person kind of controls a little bit more. But when you guys are creating goals together and then you're watching the money together, I think that just, is an amazing, beautiful relationship to have.
Thank you. I actually had it pointed out to me, that exact same thing. I was on a podcast episode with this gal. She's so incredible, but she does have in her past a toxic relationship that she was comparing that to. And so for our story, it really is when we lost everything. Up until that point, he had never asked my opinion, had never talked to me about anything. He was doing his thing and I was along for the ride, right? I was kind of over here doing my own thing, whatever. And then we lost everything. And he came to me and said, what are our goals? Like, what are your goals? I have some goals. What are your goals? And he sat down and we talked about it. And at that time, I was like, I want to be a mom and I want to have a house because that's what had been modeled for me, right? That's what success looked like to me, was a nice home, security, routine. And he said, well, what if, just go with me here, what if you could have those things? Sure, great. But what if we also travel the world? And I was like, you can do that. That was not in my money mindset at all. That was because I was raised on one income family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We had 8 kids.
Wow.
It wasn't, my dad's one income was not a huge income. He was a bank manager. We were very, middle class, low middle class.
With 8 children, probably lower.
Yeah. All of our food was, my mom grew in a garden. She made everything by scratch. So we did not. So people who went on even trips were wealthy, right? So for him to say, why don't we travel the world? I was like, sure, So for him to come and talk to me about that, it's true. We then could have a common goal. And that since that point, and actually that's been my story. I've told that story multiple times, but I've never, until it was thrown back at me like that in a loving way, said, wow, what a blessing that was, that you had someone that not only took the opportunity to ask you, he cared to ask you, he cared what you thought, and then he knew the power of working towards a common goal with your money, right? And I was like, you're right. I'll go give him a big kiss, because you're right. That was really, really nice. And like you're saying, I know a lot of women do not feel that way.
And
they feel like
the
man controls it.
Yeah. And you're creating this image and this new story for your children. So when they grow up, they say, mom and dad talked about money. They had goals together, and then they started bringing the goals to us and allowing us to have goals and having us, do chores or work or do something to create some income so that they can spend or they can save, whatever it is that you're encouraging them to have conversations with. So it's a great way for them to say, this is normal. This is how our relationship should look like. And then they bring that to the table when they get older as well. So I love that.
Well, and I also think where my community and your community, where the gap is bridged, is in having those conversations. You have to have those conversations. And with anything, I think it is uncomfortable. It is. It is uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to sitting down with your husband and saying, we call them board meetings in our community. It's like, it's not a date night. It's specifically set aside time, scheduled time, just like you would with a business associate, saying, okay, and then coming with not just emotions, right? You're coming, because you wouldn't go to a business meeting that way. You're coming with thought out, I need this, or I have a problem with this, or can you help me through this, or whatever. You're having, it's just like you would meet with an associate, a business associate.
Right.
And that's hard for a lot of people. I'm realizing it's been hard for me in my marriage around certain things, and money is a very, very powerful tool. Let's call it lighter fluid.
I was going to say tool, because you could use it for, or it could not be great.
Yes. And especially around your relationship, if your husband or the man, if he is the one in charge and he is not in a place of security, he could then turn this into, you're attacking me, you don't trust me, right? Versus, no, I just would like to be part of this. So that really is a hard conversation for a lot of people to have, but you have to have it. Yeah. That is step one. You have to have it. So on that, what would you say to women who are already underwater, right? They're just overwhelmed with it. Where is the first place to start? Because I know we talked about we have to identify what our mindset is around it and change the beliefs. But while we're doing that, what is the first step that you would say to someone who's like, I am so underwater, I've got to get control. Where do I start?
Yes. So I am a firm believer in printing paper. So if, for example, someone comes to me and they're overwhelmed because they're in credit card debt, understanding that these spending habits, we went through the stories and figured out, what is it that's kind of triggering for them to either spend more money or, just get in that situation. So I encourage people to go back 3 months, and we're going to print out your credit card statements. We're going to print out your checking account statements, whatever it is that you're spending money from, and let's take a look at it. And then we go through with an activity with the red, yellow, and green highlighter. So green is, this is a must. Like, I got to pay rent. I need to pay utilities at this time, gas and cars, things like that feel like they're necessities. We're going to highlight it as green. Those are expenses that we have to have. Then we go through and we go to the red and say, okay, what can I actually count? Like, just cut out completely. Is it a subscription? What is it in my life that I'm paying for that for right now I can just pause? It doesn't have to be forever, but let's highlight some red things because I love fast wins. Like, what can we cut out right away so that you feel like you've got that?
I want to feel the results.
Yes. And I think you talked about subscriptions, right? Like, you can look at your iPhone and see what you're subscribed to, and you're like, wow, I forgot about that. Or I signed up for that free trial, and now I know that I'm paying for it. So I start with the green and say, yes, I have to pay for this. It's okay. But now let's figure out where can we cut and just do that as quickly and as much as possible. And then the yellow is, I'm not sure. Like, I think I need this, but maybe in a month or two I can cut it out, or let's just set this one aside, put it on the table for right now. I'm not ready to cut it. And at least make those little steps forward so that we can have some progress and something that we can start tracking. And then you feel great because you're like, oh, I know it's only $5, but man, $5, incorporated over 40 years, look what it could grow to. And then showing them the value behind what it means in the future for them too.
Yeah. Have you had any instance or any story you remember that you're just like, oh my gosh, when someone comes to you, because the first thing you're asking is, what are you making versus what's coming in versus what's going out, right?
Right.
And in my experience, the what's going out is significantly smaller than what it actually is. What people think is going out is significantly. Do you have any stories around like that? That's the person was just like, I'm floored. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a cool moment to be able to experience that with someone, to have like a positive reaction instead of, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. I have no idea. I'm out of control. And then when you show them, it's not that bad of a picture and we can work with this. It's not
Right.
it's not like you're going to jail tomorrow or something. It's just, hey, let's shed some light on some positive news so that we can celebrate those wins. And I love like texting my clients, and I'll text them, I'm like, tell me something awesome this week and just share. And I think when you have someone that's sharing those wins with you, it just feels so much better than celebrating by yourself.
Yeah, totally. And someone cheering you on when you know it's not just you, that you've got someone that's cheering you on behind you, like, you've got this, okay? Especially for those times when you're like, I don't think I do. I really don't think I do. And you've got someone else going, you do. I promise. It's okay. This is gonna pass. It's just maybe your cycle this month. I don't know, but you've got it. I promise.
Yeah.
Let's talk about budgeting without everybody's eyes glazing over. What are your most favorite quick fix budgeting tricks?
Make it visual. You talked about your goals, right? Do
Right.
you have your goals visually somewhere? Or is it up on a board? How often are you guys talking about it? So when you tell your mind, this is what I want, a funny thing happens. It's like we start to notice things and we become so much more aware of what we're spending when we think about, oh, you talked about travel, right? I want to be able to travel. Is it really worth it for me to, buy a pair of shoes? Or is it really worth it for me to sign up for this subscription? Maybe I go to an earlier movie than a later movie. And I know these seems like very simple and basic things, but when you add them up over time, the compounding effect of it is amazingly huge. And so when we say, I want this, I print it out, I put it up on the wall, or I have it somewhere where I'm going to see it constantly in the bathroom, when I go work out, whatever that looks like to you, where you're going to see it most often. I want you to concentrate and visualize that as if it kind of already happened, right? And so then you're telling your brain, this is my goal, this is what we're working towards, this is my story now. And your body just starts to look for that to be true and to make it happen for you.
Okay, I feel so bad. My husband and I have overlapped guests on both of our podcasts lately because both of us keep finding these guests that are so incredible for both of ours. So I'm going to have you, I'm going to send your name over to his CEO so that you can be on there too, because everything you're saying is from that conversation my husband had with me back in 2011, right? After we'd lost everything in the recession. Up until this point, to this day, is exactly. So when we were living in the basement, he used to drive this way to work and he would pass this Jeep that he was like, oh my gosh, I love it. I love that Jeep. I want it. And we had a little bit of money because we had been saving. We had been working towards our goals, whatever that was at the time. And he said, I literally had to drive a different way to work.
Yep.
I realized that was something that would trigger me if I didn't. And then he said, then I reached out to my dad and said, I have to invest this somewhere. It's like burning a hole, right? I have to put it somewhere where it's going to actually do good rather than I'm just going to go out and buy this Jeep. So it's absolutely true. And it is a practice, folks. Okay. I just want to reiterate that it's nobody's ever won the game. Okay. Some people that are making money hand over fist, fine. Maybe they've won the game, but they figured it out. But it doesn't have to look that way. It doesn't have to look like, who's an example? A Kim Kardashian where she's just rolling in it hand over fist, right? It can also look like, what do I need? So when we left to travel, it was 6 years later. That's how long it took us to rebuild to the point that we could leave and go travel long-term with our kids. So a great resource for that, 4-hour work week, helped us realize that we didn't have to earn $1 million. We just had to have a certain amount of money coming in each month for the bills that we needed to cover, right? Also, we left at a time, 6 years later, the economy was at its highest again. St. George is just like Vegas, just like Arizona, just like California. The building industry is insane here. And we were making more money than we ever had again. And he said, that's enough. We don't need more. This is enough. This is all we need. It doesn't have to be. So you also have to sit down and say to yourself, what's the lifestyle, right? That I want, what's going to be like perfect for me, and work towards that. Because I think a lot of times people think about it as, I got to get $1 million saved for retirement. And it's like, that's a big elephant to swallow.
And
so how do you help talk your clients off the ledge of that?
Yeah. What I love about that story that you were telling about your husband is one minor change, right? He saw the Jeep and he thought, well, if I just take the next street over, it's a small change to make that no longer visual, right? So it's no longer something he's looking at all the time. And in the world that we live in, it's unsubscribing from, emails. I used to get like, I'm a big shoe person. That's my problem that I have is I buy too many shoes, right?
Me too. I'm with you.
I don't need the shoes, but what happens is, Saks is sending me emails and DSW and all these places. So I had to unsubscribe so that it wouldn't constantly be a visual for me. Maybe it's social media that you're following, there might be certain pages that just make you feel like you're not hitting your goals because you're visualizing something that's not part of your life or where you're at right now. So then unfollowing that too. And I know I totally went off on a tangent and forgot what your original question was, but I think that I just love it for your story because it's easy for us to implement, to unsubscribe, to unfollow, to change the way that you're driving to work, just so that that visual piece for you stays with what you feel like is your goal.
Well, and I want to highlight what you said is you're following these people and all of a sudden their goals become your goals.
Yeah.
That wasn't your goal in the first place, but now you feel anxiety around, I'm not doing that, or I can't buy that, or I don't make enough money to have that. And it's like, was that one of your original goals? Is that one of your values? And I know you work with your clients about values and, like you said, visualizing what your actual goal is and having it somewhere that reminds you, come back to it. So I'm with you. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you. Unfollow the things like, look at all the Amazon influencers that are telling you have to buy all of these outfits and look how cute I look in this outfit and la 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 la. Okay, I want to see these Amazon influencers closets because $20 says they're sending them all back right after they get them. Okay, I'm sure they're not keeping them, or if they are, they're probably behind the scenes selling them to the highest bidder. I don't know, but you don't need it. Is that part of your plan? Is that part of your budget? I know we go and live out of backpacks for months at a time. I think our longest stretch was 9 months.
Wow.
And I have packing cubes that I don't even open, that stay in my backpack because I'm that lazy. I just wash the clothes in the sink that I'm wearing and wear them over and over and over again. But I think to myself, you idiot. You didn't even need that. Why did you pack it? I've been dragging it across the world. You didn't even need it. And then we come home to all of this stuff and it's like, I don't need this stuff. And I get back into the habit of following the Amazon influencers or whatever. And I'm just like, I have to take a step back. It's like, that is not one of my goals. So I love that you said that their goals now become your goals and they weren't originally.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get us back on track here. What are 3 money habits every woman should have in place no matter her income level?
Yeah. So number one is, I'm going to assume at this point, like someone has got kind of a good handle on their finances. Maybe they're not so far in debt and they're working towards goals. One is retirement, thinking about your retirement, what that looks like. And it could be a long time away, but, keep in mind that when you get married and you have kids, kids can get a loan for their college. You can get a loan for a house, a loan for a car, but nobody's going to loan you money when you need to retire someday. So always having that as part of your goal and contributing to your retirement as young and as often as possible so that you can, not have to work until you're 70. You can choose to have a different lifestyle later in life. So having the retirement is really important. We talked a little bit about the debt, if I could wave a wand, I think my one wish for the United States would be to get rid of credit card debt. I feel like it's something that we have so much control over, but yet it controls us. And there's a website called usdebtclock.org, and it's just this ticker, and it shows how much consumer debt, how much student loan
wow.
debt, how much credit card debt, and it's in real time. And the numbers are just astounding to me. Like, we can fix this problem. We don't have hunger, so much to worry about in the US. There's bigger problems in this world, but why are we so far in debt? And I think
Yeah.
paying attention to that is so important for us, both, our generations and generations to come, but it's something we can fix. So that's my one wish for the US, is to really
Yeah.
tackle that credit card debt, because it's not necessary, right? And then number 3 is to have some fun in your goals too. We talked about shoes. I have like a shoe budget. I also am a whiskey drinker. So one of my upcoming trips that I have a goal is to get to Ireland and Scotland and go like visit the distilleries. I think that would be a lot of fun. See the castles and just experience, a different lifestyle than what I have. But putting something fun in your goals too, so that you can set even just a little bit of money aside, because what's the point? We don't know how long we're going to be here. It could be tomorrow. And if you're so hard on yourself and so like strict with your money, then it's just not fun. So I want you to have some fun with it too.
Yeah, Rick's grandpa, my grandpa, but his, we love this man so much. He worked his entire life, never called in sick, never missed a day of work, worked. So his legacy, which that generation was a lot of, his legacy was how much money he could leave his family and better their circumstances and make sure his wife, if he passed first, was taken care of, everything, whatever.
Right.
He never spent his money. And that was just so hard for us at the end. It was like, we would beg him, and he would finally come on trips with us. We'd beg him, come on trips with us. And one time we even talked him into paying for first class tickets for he and his wife. And we're like, you've got to enjoy, you've worked so hard for this. And it's like, I know that was his security and what his legacy he was proud of. But I also see it, and my husband thankfully sees it as a cautionary tale as well, that it's like, we're not here forever and we can't take it with us, right? So unless you know in your heart, like Grandpa did, but unless you know in your heart, I'm doing this to give to someone else, I'm willingly, knowingly that this is not going to be mine, it's going to be someone else's. It's like, it's not coming with you. So you got to have some goals. And I want to talk about also education on interest rates. I think that is huge. I know logically, I hate math, I hate numbers, and I know that's a money mindset thing, especially for women, but my husband is a math whiz. His mind just calculates things, and he'll start throwing numbers at me, and I'm just like glazed over, and he'll say, right? And I'll be like, I stopped listening, like out the gate, my eyes just glazed over and I went to shoes. But so he will talk about stuff. And even though my logical mind knows 4% interest, 8% interest, excuse me, it doesn't know until you actually write it down and say to yourself. So we just had something where the interest on this investment that we're looking at, the interest is $7,000. The interest. And I'm like, I can't fathom that. I can't fathom being able to be okay to paying this. Like, I get whatever. But so I think the education around what interest rates actually look like and what they're actually doing to people,
Right.
I think is a huge. So where do you fall on that in your plan with your clients?
Yeah, same. I mean, that's why we talk about the credit card debt and how important that is, with interest rates where they are up to now, we're paying 30% interest. So it's kind of an exaggeration, but if I'm working with a client and they know that they've kind of have that charging problem, I'll tell them, look at this, whatever it is that you're looking at buying, for me it's shoes. If I look at this pair of shoes and I double the price, in my mind, is it now worth it for me to buy? Because
wow, that's good.
Right away, and you're charging it to your card and you're paying that interest. And someday when I get a bonus or my refund check next year, which is not a refund, by the way, visualizing that those shoes are not worth twice as much. So don't buy it. And when you think about it in that mindset, then hopefully that will help change that story a little bit.
My husband used to say to me, and he still says to my kids, he says, is this worth being away? Because when we were trying to build it all back, we had just had our first baby. We were living in his grandparents' basement and he was working. So our company basically was $670,000 in debt, but we could not bankrupt. We couldn't do anything like that because it was secured by guaranteed by his dad's property. So if we went bankrupt, goodbye, dad's property, right? So we couldn't do that. So Rick was at the office working from sun up to sundown. He had a lot of guilt around, I'm missing our first son's life. I'm like, he's a teeny baby, doesn't really know you're here. You're fine. I promise. You're here for what the important things matter. He knows you're here. You're part of this. It's fine. But he was working so hard. Where was the point? Where did I start this? Where did I start this?
We were talking about interest rates.
I don't know why I went on to this tangent.
I did that earlier. I completely went off and I'm like, I know you.
Oh, money's a hard one because there's so much emotion attached to any of it, right? Any of it, there's so much emotion. I mean, I don't even know why I went on that tangent.
Also, then I'll bring up another point too, insurance. So I also own an insurance company, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand because it could be like 50 pages worth of documents. So insurance is really important too. If you're a homeowner, making sure like the insurance piece is correct. Understanding what it is. Don't overpay for things you don't need, but don't underpay because you think you need to cut your budget. I always recommend to people, like, just like you're kind of, dating your spouse and interviewing your spouse, you should be doing that for all of your professionals, whether it's taxes, insurance, making sure that you interview them. What are their qualifications? Do they align with your values? Yes. Are they educating themselves constantly? So not just to pick professionals, but also interview them just like you would anybody else in your company or your life.
Oh my gosh. I stand by that. I wholeheartedly agree with you. I remember why I went on that tangent. So just like you were saying, is this pair of shoes worth paying double for because of the interest that you will pay if you're charging this on a credit card? So he used to say to me, when you're going to go out and buy something, think to yourself, is this worth me being away from Rick for 2 more hours today? He said, because that is my time is that money. So me being away from you and our family is me paying for whatever it is you're buying. And I'm like, well, now that took the whole fun out of it. So yeah, thank you. Because it is very visual. It's like he's in a shop working like sun up to sundown and doesn't get to be with me or his new baby boy. And it's like, that's heartbreaking. So if I go out and spend $100 on whatever, is that fair? That's now he has to pay for that. That means that many more hours that he doesn't get to be home spending time with us. And I was like, whew, arrow to the heart, bud. But it works if you think about it that way. So I really like your visualization for interest in that way. Yeah. All right, let's see.
Talked about travel too when we talked about spending. So is it worth, buying that over one less day of vacation? So I think it would hit home for me too.
It is 100%. That's how we live. I love fancy cars. I mean, that's one of our big things is really nice cars. My husband, he's had a dream always. He had a big dog chopper. He has a dream to have a Lambo one day. He likes nice things. We drive a 2004 Tahoe is our new family car. 2004. Can you even let's all sit down and do the math on that, okay? How many years that is? And it had 40,000 miles on it. We got it for $9,000. We paid cash. It was his grandparents. They passed away and the cousins all got to do a auction, like a bidding war on it. And it was like, but here's a big part of that money mindset, ladies, is would you be okay driving a 2004 Tahoe? Right? I am. I'm okay because guess what that means I get to do? I get to be in Europe for 3 months again this year, or I get to be in Australia. I get to be in New Zealand. It doesn't matter what car I'm driving, but a lot of people, and I learned that after we lost everything, but a lot of But before we lost it, I would not have been okay with that. I was worried about what everybody else was thinking. I was worried that everybody else in this community is keeping up with the Joneses, and I needed to be too, right? So there is a lot of give and take to money. It's like, yeah, you want this nice watch. That's fine. Have the nice watch. That is a you thing. That is a you value. For me, that's not in my values. It's like we talked about. Is this someone else's goals? Are you changing your goals now for someone else's goals?
Yep. Very, very true.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's end with a challenge. What's one action step every listener can take this week to feel more empowered and confident with her money?
Yeah. So I'll issue a 7-day challenge.
Ooh, okay.
First, we're going to start with our phones and we're going to figure out what do we subscribe to that we can cut out. So if you can, 1 a day. If you can't, at least 1 in the next 7 days. 2, if you are on social media, I want you to unfollow something that's not getting you closer to your goals. Or maybe not be on social media at all for the next 7 days and see what changes in those 7 days for you.
Yeah.
3, wake up a little bit earlier and listen to an amazing podcast that's going to feed your brain, feed your soul on a positive note that's going to help you get towards your goals. Podcasts are free. It doesn't cost any money. But if you can listen to 5 minutes and start your day on a positive note, I promise you, your life is going to change. And I feel that wholeheartedly. I am a podcaster myself. And when you start with a great information in your day, your brain is already on fire and it's going to continue to look towards those goals.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, I got it. Wrote it down. Cut the subscriptions, unfollow, wake up early, feed your soul. Go on a walk. Do it. Talk about habit stacking, okay?
Right.
If you go on a walk, listen to a great podcast, you are getting so much goodness from the grounding yourself, the vitamin D. Oh my gosh, that's like the biggest habit stack in your day I think you could possibly do is going on a walk. For me, at least. I don't know. But anyway. Thank you so much. So where can everybody find your book? Where's the best place? Is it just on all the platforms or is your Linktree the best place?
Linktree is great. My book, Empower Your Money, is on Amazon, and every quarter, as much as they allow me to, I do make it free. So keep looking. My social media is Empower Her Money, and I'll announce it when it's there. But yeah, you can do the Kindle version. Amazon allows, authors to make it free. I think it's like every 3 months or something like that. So once I know the promotion's up, I always make it free because the more people I can reach, the more lives we can impact.
That proves to me that your money is where your mouth is. That proves to me because that so many times you have people who are, it's like you said at the beginning, I'm going to bring this full circle, is when you're passionate and you have something that you truly love and you're able to help others in this, you're doing it without any regard for that. Yeah. And so I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And I love this episode and I can't wait for all of my listeners to hear this and kick off their new money mindset.
Yay.
Thank you, Angela.